to A Mighty Blaze. The blaze was sparked in 2020 when COVID extinguished the traditional in-person book tour. Our New York Times bestselling authors and co-founders Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt joined forces to promote books coming out. And this is Debut Spotlight, where we focus on amazing debut authors. And this week we have Elle Devine. Oh, and I'm also Andi Rand, your host, one of the hosts of Debut Spotlight. Elle Devine is the acclaimed author of the Keke McCoy Mysteries, the first book of which, An Epitaph for Jezebel, we're going to discuss today, and also the YA series Drama High. She's an award-winning novelist whose work has been praised by Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, Essence, Ebony, and more. She's a former teacher, has a master's and an MHA, and she currently lives in Atlanta, Georgia. And the first book in this series, An Epitaph for Jezebel, is a really amazing book that focuses on Keke McCoy, a reporter who investigates the death of a stripper who works at this really amazing strip club called the Honey Spot, when really nobody else is kind of taking this seriously. So it's an amazing book, yes, that blends a lot of social issues with just a really compelling and fascinating mystery. So hello, Elle Devine. How are you doing today?
I am great, Andi. Thank you so much for having me on The Mighty Blaze. I'm just so excited to be here and so honored that you asked me to be here.
Yes.
So thank you very much for having me.
No, I'm so excited too. I loved An Epitaph for Jezebel, although I did have to Google how to spell epitaph so many times to make sure I would not make a fool of myself spelling this wrong. But it's such a beautiful title, and really speaks to the content of the book, which I guess we'll just jump into talking about, because it's about, you know, Keke herself is a reporter now, but she worked as a stripper, and she really is compelled to investigate this because she sees how not seriously traditional law enforcement is taking this, because they don't really understand or see the value in these women, because they've decided, you know, they're not the right kind of woman. So what made you want to write this story?
Well, thank you for the acknowledgement for the title. I do just have to segue it a tad bit. When I was at UCLA, I can't remember if it was my junior or senior year, but I took a course about migrant farming. You know, I was in California, so there was a big deal. Anyway, there was a book that really hit home for me, and it was called An Epitaph for a Peach. And I never forgot it. I never forgot the title. It just drew me in, because I was like, oh my God, why are we writing an epitaph for a peach? Was the peach dead? Like, what happened? So, you know, ever since then, I held it in my head that I wanted to write a novel with the title Epitaph in it. And for Jezebel in particular, because she just has bad rap. I don't think you can go to any country or, you know, speak in any language and somebody doesn't get the reference of a Jezebel, right? Especially when you're talking about Black women or women of color in particular, the historical, you know, reference to the name. And then when you're called that, or when you're deemed to be fast when you're younger, or those types of things. And so, of course, when we're dealing with strippers, and like you said, they are the forgotten ones. They aren't the right type of woman. They're the type of women that people look at and say, you don't want to end up like that. And so to flip that and to say, you know what, I'm going to honor Jezebel. I'm going to give her flowers, basically, which is part of, you know, writing an epitaph for someone, is to praise them. And it's just a, you know, 1 or 2 line note, but it really gives you an essence of who they are internally, and the strength of the women, especially, you know, pole dancing, as we've talked about off screen, is not an easy art. So, and then when I started writing this book, you know, which was many years ago, it was very interesting being a single mom going into the strip clubs and, you know, auditioning for what, I'm sorry, I just had a, you know, complete, no, what was it called? What's it called? Not novice night, but
amateur night?
Yeah, amateur night. It was something like that. Yeah, but they called it something else. But anyway, and so if you've taken the courses, you would take courses at the pole dancing class. You would go see your favorite instructors, because most of them dance in the city somewhere. You'd go and they'd bring up their students on stage. It was the best time but it was also very frightening. And it, but that's where I learned about the A, the B, the C crew. So, they never took you on stage when it was A crew time, because A crew don't play that. You don't mess with their money. So it had to be, during the day at 12 o'clock when they first opened, and, people are coming in for the wings. So, but that's what made me want to write about it, because I really do have a love for these women. I have a love for the empowerment that can be given from pole dancing, from strip dancing, from taking your sexuality and your sensuality, understanding the difference between the two and honoring them both.
And I think that's so beautiful. And it is, I do pole dancing as well. We discussed this off stream, and I have the bruises to prove it. I won't show them on camera because that wouldn't be appropriate, but it's so beautiful. And I felt very grateful to have instructors who were very serious and were like, if you've never been to a strip club, or if you don't respect strippers, like if you're just here because you, then get out.
Kick rocks.
It's not for you. And I think that is so important to keep in mind, because even some people who try and take pole dancing are not respecting actual strippers, because they're like, well, I'm just doing this for fitness, so it's different. And it's
Have
very
you seen
silly to me.
A stripper get to the top of that building, and as they say on I forgot the name of the TV show, but she calls it gangster walking on the ceiling. I was like, yes, ma'am. Yes, I like that description, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're up there thugging it out on the ceiling. And I don't see many people who can, walk in their daily lives just walking around doing that. So to do it in some 6-7 inch stilettos and with a crowd of people around you, it's the feminine mystique is to be honored, respected, and feared, right? And so even when you are that, when you embody that, sometimes you don't know how powerful that is. And I think that's what happens when we go to, fitness classes. I was a fitness instructor for many years. We talked about that. I was a dance instructor. When we go and people laugh at it or giggle at it, or, don't understand the pole kisses, like we were talking about, the bruising that comes the day after, when you're just like, oh my God, what did I do yesterday? They don't get it, and you can come for a bridal shower, or, a birthday party or whatever, that's fine, have fun. But when you come consistently and you understand the power that it takes to pull yourself up, and you get the metaphor behind that, pulling yourself up from the bottom to the top, there's something about that. And I think even the people that giggle, after about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, the giggling stops. Because they realize they can't get up that pole, and they're like, oh, okay, let me be quiet and actually pay attention.
I mean, the first time I made it to the top of the pole, I was so impressed. And then my instructor was like, and now you have to get back up there to wipe it down. And I was like, give me a minute.
Yes, we talk about that in the book too, wiping the pole down. It's like, no, everybody cleans their own. But it's real. It's real.
No, and what inspired Keke specifically? Because for me, I loved reading about her, and a lot of women who are the leads in novels tend to fit a very similar profile, which I'm not saying to insult any of them, because I think they're meant to represent one type of person. But Keke, I love that she spoke so openly about her body, that other people spoke openly, maybe in negative ways, about her body, negative and positive. But I loved basically that she has a little more to her, and she discusses that, because I feel like that so often gets left out of female main characters, or it's just not addressed. And I love seeing really all types of women are represented in this novel, which I loved seeing as well. So what was behind Keke and making her feel just really so real for me?
Well, Keke, actually, the way that I spell it is Keke, right? Which in Yoruba means little. And so Keke McCoy is little honey mama. And so just I've in my past series, my young adult novel series, let me just be loose about it, right? Everything is kind of loosely based off of me, or women that I've met, women in my family. So each of the main characters is somebody that I would like to be like, would like to embody more of that inner fortitude to say, you know what, I got an extra 40 pounds on me, and I'm still going to get up on this pole. I'm still going to get up on this stage. I'm still going to make my money. And I think Dulce embodies that the most, right? Because she's like, I don't care. I'm Kovacher, same thing. All of these women are women. They are, you know, and even Praline with her little tiny self, you know, she still comes out of that. Unfortunately, she was trafficked as a child. I think you read, you know, you heard about her background, etc. And we're going to focus more on her in book 2. She becomes more of a, but Keke McCoy is, you know, the protagonist for the series. But I think for me, it was just very important to show, number one, when you're talking about the female aesthetic and being representative of all females, like you say, we have different types of females in the book, right? We have different types of women, I should say. Not all females are women and vice versa. So I think that it's very important to highlight that. How you feel as a woman, how you feel when you wake up, that is what the world sees. That is the mirror that you're projecting. And Keke McCoy, to me, is a mirror for that empowerment that I wish I had, for that honesty, for that rawness. You know, sometimes it just is what it is. These sides gonna rub together and you're gonna get this summer body. And this is just how it is. Doesn't mean that you're not as sexy as the next chick. It doesn't mean that you don't have the right to want sex or to feel that you are attractive or empowering. And I think that's where Honey Mama comes in. She's like, look, girls, you know, life is short. We don't have time for this. You own your body wherever you are in that moment, and you get up on that stage and you make these men worship you, and you get off that stage and you go live your life and you keep it moving. We don't have time for this feeling sorry and sad for yourself. If you want to be stronger, do something to make yourself stronger. Yeah, most days I don't feel like that. Most days I don't have that energy. I don't have that motivation, you know. It's a lot, you know, and to be a woman in this society, it just, I don't even know how some people do it, how young people do it, especially nowadays. It's like, if I had to grow up with Real Housewives and Kardashians as the pinnacle of what beauty is going, I mean, I would never be beautiful. Let's just be honest, right? So we have to address that. We have to say that out loud, that it's okay for people to be different. It's okay for you to own yourself as you are. There's no mistake in you. And you come here and you glow up and you glow to the best of your ability for yourself, not for anyone else. And see, Keke's teaching me that. I love writing her because I need to hear it too, honey.
Yeah. And that's, hearing all that advice, I was like, wow, because I'm in the middle of a move where I just moved to a new place and am feeling insecure. And I was like, wow, I should start internalizing a lot of this advice because it's honestly so helpful. So that's another thing. It's not only a compelling mystery, which it really is, of Keke trying to figure out who murdered, well, she didn't actually work with her, so not a former colleague, but someone who worked at the place she used to work, the Honey Spot. It's also a book that will really make you think about your own self-confidence and how you view yourself, which I think is really impressive, to write a compelling mystery and weave all these things in a way that it never feels like the book is lecturing you, which I always appreciate.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for the mystery aspect, are you somebody who you had the mystery, like you knew the whole time what it was, or did it kind of unfold for you as you wrote it?
Well, that's a good question, Andy. I would say I always wrote from the murder. So I knew that final dance. Now, when I first started the book, that was more in the middle or at the end of the book. It wasn't at the beginning. I didn't start with the murder and then do that. So that did unfold, how it came to be and everything. But the why, I knew the why. I knew that, and I'm not spoiling anything, but I knew that there were identity issues. I knew that there were self-esteem issues. I knew that there were mother issues, you know, those type of things. People are always talking about daddy syndrome. Sometimes you got mama syndrome too. You know? I knew that there was going to be a reveal, so to speak. But no, the plot kind of told itself. I knew Keke McCoy would be the main character. I just love the name, the alliteration behind it. And like I said, the meaning of Keke. But yeah, no, I honestly, the unfolding of it, no. But yes, I did start writing from that final dance.
Okay. And it is, the book opens with the murder, which is a really compelling way to grip you in. And it also felt devastating because I felt like I got attached to her so fast.
Real quick.
I was and then I was so sad because I was like, no.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, no, go back in time and somebody step in, save her. But
like, somebody's gonna come through the door.
No. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. At least she has Keke to bring her to justice.
Absolutely.
Provide her justice.
Okay, I did not do that.
I am not sure how that flipped, but hopefully.
Will it flip back?
Let's hope so. Let me see if I change our layout.
You made it bigger.
But, hopefully it will
you
flip.
You can see me from all sides. Just imagine me hanging off the side of the pole.
Yes, this is the view you would get.
That would be hilarious. Yeah. It's a good time to tell our viewers that I have an allergy. I know people who've met me in person have been like, oh my gosh, you're so Dorothy Dandridge because I have my little handkerchiefs. But yes, I have an allergy. I live in Georgia. Sorry, it's an annual thing. Actually, for me, it's annual as in year round, not as in it pops up annually. But I just came back from LA and I was wonderful by the beach. And so I always say, you know, I think it's just my LA in me. It's just wants to go home. So it cries these saltwater tears like, all day long. The ocean. Try to come through to Georgia.
That makes sense. I've been to LA a few times and absolutely loved it. So
I've been twice just in the past 6 weeks. And if I could, man, that's what we're working for, y'all. We're working for me to have a home there.
Yeah. And speaking of LA and Hollywood, I was wondering, this feels like a series that could easily be converted into a movie or TV show. I don't know if you've had any discussions about that, or if you can even discuss it if you have, which if you can't, completely understand. But
no, the book just came out. So, you know, I don't have any options on the table yet. Obviously, I've had them in the past for my last series, but here we are, you know, as you know, being in theater as well, you know, you're in developmental hell. So even when you are optioned, it could make a great idea. It could be a great series, et cetera, et cetera. Getting it from there to the table to the screen, so many different steps. So I focus on the writing. I always focus on the novels, on the, so now I'm into the next one, which is Lost in the Garden of Eve. I'm already on to the next one. So I just focus on the writing. And if it comes about where it would be a great movie or a great TV series, I could see it on Hulu or Netflix or something of that nature, I would love that, you know. But my goal is to keep writing.
Yeah. And that's probably for the best, because when you focus on too many of the outside things, actually I'll keep it bigger just so we can look at your
I don't know what
happened.
I didn't do anything, so I don't know.
I'm guessing it's one of those weird camera things. Like sometimes my camera loves to refocus in the middle of these interviews. So but hopefully it will
decided I look cuter this way. I don't know.
Well, we can still hear you. That's what's important.
Comment, let me know. Do you like my left side or my right side? I don't know. I don't have any control over it, but hey, I'm flipped, so we might as well discuss it.
And speaking of the writing, I know you had your very successful Drama High series before. How was writing transitioning from a more young adult aimed series to a definite more adult audience series? What was that transition like?
Another good question. You know, I had to be clear with my characters when I'm writing notes. So just when we were offline, right? You said something, gave me an idea, and I sparked and I wrote a note. So I have my notes separated obviously for Drama High as opposed to Honey Mama, etc. And I call it Honey Mama and Crew. But for Epitaph, in particular, when I was writing the first novel, this novel, you didn't even show it. An Epitaph for Jezebel.
Just all sides.
There we go. To all sides. So when I was writing this novel, yes, it was sometimes difficult to separate Honey Mama and Mama. I'll be honest. It was because, like you said, right? You don't want to preach in this book because these are adults. Young adults, you can be a little bit more life lesson-y, you know, you got to kind of tell them these types of things. adults don't want that. Adults just kind of want to get into it. This is where we
Mm-hmm.
are. And I'm the same way because I love the mystery genre myself. I love sci-fi. You know, I would love to
Mm-hmm.
write like Octavia Butler. But
Oh.
anyway, these are the voices that came to me. And so when I tell the story, I try and be as raw and authentic as possible, but I don't have to temper myself as much as I do a young adult.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. I don't have to hone myself in. I don't have to reel it back. I don't
Yeah.
have to remember that. And I love librarians. I just spent, the weekend with librarians. But in this particular case, I don't have to wonder whether or not teachers or parents or librarians are going to question
Mm-hmm.
the content or question the ethics behind it, so to speak. With Honey Mama and them, I could just go all in and
Yeah.
explore issues of sexuality, like we were saying before,
Mm-hmm.
and things that I know my young adult readers want to read, but Drama High is not that serious.
Yes.
So I love the fact that I'm able to be
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more free, and in my 40s now, it's just like this is kind of where I am or where I was in my 30s,
Mm-hmm.
just wanting to explore what it meant to be a woman, to be a single woman out here in these streets back in the day doing, the dating thing. And even if you weren't and you were in a relationship and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I maintain me in this relationship or do I even want a relationship? There's
Mm-hmm.
some people who don't need partners or don't want partners. And Honey Mama's one of them. Honey Mama's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
She's she's past that,
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah.
past it in a like, oh, a haughty kind of way, but
Yeah.
just
Mm-hmm.
I've got my girls, I've got my studio. This is where I am, which is why the
Mm-hmm.
murder, she takes it so personally, right? Because
Yes.
she's devoted her life to changing the lives of others.
Mm-hmm.
One click at a time, one click of the heel at a time.
Yes. And I did love the character of Honey Mama. She just felt so beautiful and so like seeing somebody so self-actualized even in a novel is just amazing to see. What was behind her creation? And she's the woman who runs the Honey Spot, as we've kind of discussed, which is the club that's woman owned and it's focused on treating the dancers just as well as the clients, not just, which is not always the case for every club out there.
No, it is not. The question was, what was behind Honey Mama?
Yes.
The creation of Honey Mama.
Mm-hmm.
So Honey Mama is really, like I said, I had to separate her and Mama in the series, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're both based off of the embodiment of the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a priestess in my nightlife, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but in my all the time life, and I really hear Oshun, I hear Yemonja, I hear Olokun, I hear Oya, I hear these West African deities, I hear these strong women who are forces of nature as well. Honey Mama is that. She is the embodiment of the springs, of Indian springs. She is the embodiment of the fresh water that runs through Georgia. And just how just a cup of cold water can cool anything off, even if you go into a hot ass strip club. And you got to deal with the clients and being this short woman, in the mix of all of this. So that is where she came from. And I promise you, I took a belly dance class in like Kirkwood or something, out in Atlanta. And this was, like in 2008, 9, 10. This is a long time ago. But anyway, I took this class and this woman walks in. You really couldn't tell, if she was East Indian or if she was Pakistani. I mean, you really could not tell. And it did not matter. She walked through that room. She could have been my mama. She walked through that room and honey, her hips empowered us all. We were entranced. And that's what I was like, damn. Like she was thick and she had her beaded waist and she was in her 50s probably. Seriously. She, and she smelled like curry and honey. And she just was amazing. And she walked in, she, didn't say much, and she commanded the room with her hips. And it just gave me this idea of, oh my God, what if? And so I think we talked about that earlier. And so Honey Mama is a what if character. It's like, what if there was this person? And, they're like that woman and that dance teacher and other people that, I mean, I'm sure they exist. And so I just wanted to conjure her up.
Yeah. And I think it would be great if it was all honey mamas running the clubs. It would be.
Wouldn't it be?
Yeah. Which I did also love. You painted such a realistic portrait of stripping where it's not just a lot of people love to focus on the negatives, and that's something characters talk about because Keke in this writes an article about her experience stripping, and it focuses on a lot of the downsides, and a lot of her former coworkers feel really betrayed by that because they're like, you made us seem, like it's all tragedy. And I thought it was so lovely how in the book it really balances those sides, that there is this beautiful, empowering part of it, and then there's also the dangers and the risks because of the world we live in. Was that important for you to just create that really nuanced picture of what it's actually like?
Oh, absolutely. And the judgment that comes with it, just the external judgment immediately.
Yes.
But the dangers in it, of course. When I was, dancing back in the day as like an amateur, going to the classes, not, making money. I wish I could. I was never that brave. But seriously, I mean, that's where I would sit there and write because I was just mesmerized by the fact that these women, and I would say that a lot about a lot of other women too, but if you only knew how much power you had, you know what I mean? If someone showed you an actual mirror, not the crazy clown mirrors, the circus mirrors that are in most strip clubs, right? So if you go in the dark, seedy strip clubs, even the nicer ones in downtown Atlanta, they have this kind of weird circus vibe, like you're in a tent and you can never tell what time of day it is. It's like being in Vegas, right? You don't know what's going on outside. You're just totally committed to, what's right in front of you. What if we opened it up? What if we let the light in? What if we, said these women own their bodies, they own the money they're going to make from their bodies, and they can go shine it and work it how they want to. And that's really where that comes from. It was very important to make sure that it's not the act of stripping that is the issue. It's the environment in which the women are placed that is the issue. I heard someone speaking earlier this month about how it must feel to be a woman dating now, right? It's not just about getting made up. It's not just about the fact that men can pull on a shirt and a hat and jeans and walk out the door. It's about, do I have my keys? Do I have my mace? Am I safe? Can I park here? I should park under a light. Looking at the exits of the doors when I'm walking back to my car, looking under the car, looking behind the car to see if anyone's in the, there are all these things just to go outside, to go to friggin' Publix, that we have to think about as women, our safety. So imagine being young, 14, 15, 16, and put on stage or put in a hotel room with a bunch of, your face says it, right? It's just like, oh my God, you can't even imagine. But Honey Mama is the flip side of that. Honey Mama's like, no, baby, we got yoga classes. We have, I want you guys to go meditate by the springs. You need to come in. You need to take your shoes off and chill and relax. You do that. We want to make sure your babies are taken care of. You have education, whatever you want to do. If you don't want to stay stripping, cool, because that's how Keke gets out the game, right? Honey Mama gives her a scholarship and she ends up going to college to become a journalist. Now, the flip side is that, yes, for that scholarship, she wrote this article about her experience, not all experiences. And I think that's important for us, going back to the beginning of your question, as women, we have to not judge each other as well. Try not to judge the other woman's experience because we do so much of that, right? If a woman sees a stripper, they're just like, oh, I know what you do for a living, or you look like and you equate it to prostitution. And I'm on the side of the fence of that too, because it's kind of like, it's yours. If anyone's going to monetize on your body, male, female, or otherwise, that's your business once you get to a certain age and the pros and the cons. Whether or not it's healthy for you is a decision only you can make. But I think with stripping, and especially with the honey spot, because the way they did Honey Mama was so wrong, right? They were like, nope, you can't have a liquor license. She was like, okay, so I'll bake sweets. I'll grow my own herbs and make tea, and we'll make this a whole thing. No problem. And I even love that energy because when you come into the honey spot, you have to kind of, let your guard down. I think alcohol or any type of and I'm not shading the drink. I'm just saying it gives you that liquid courage, right? But if you don't have that, who are you, right? When you walk into a club or you're going out for the night, and you're like, no, I'm gonna get my drink on, I'm gonna do this. Okay, what if you don't have that to do it with? Will it make you a little bit more toned down? Will it make you a little bit more respectful and enjoy the art that you're being given? Enjoy the entire experience of these beautiful, illustrious, strong women getting up on this stage, and take the violence out of it, take the heat out of it, you know, and just give us the beauty, give us the show.
And I think the artistry is something people look past because it's such a beautiful art form, and it is so challenging. Like,
so challenging.
It's getting into those positions, even just getting up the pole at all, is so hard and takes a lot of strength, a lot of flexibility, a lot of grace, and
a lot of faith.
Yes, a lot of faith in yourself. It's really an art form that will teach you to trust yourself because you're the only thing holding you up there. So you have to have the confidence. Yeah. And it's something where even I'm a person who works in theater, and that's my like main day job. And theater people are known for being more accepting, but it was even something when I discussed doing pole dance that gave some of my coworkers pause. And I was like, this is so crazy when we're all theater people. And I feel like the difference, the way people divide performers like actors versus strippers, I think is ridiculous because I'm like, we are all performers. They're also on a stage performing. They're just the same as the rest of us.
Absolutely.
And we should not exclude them from our performer community. And, you know, actors used to not even be allowed to be buried in a Christian cemetery. So I don't know why we're being so judgy.
Really?
But, yeah. There's a book I read called The Disreputable Profession, which is what they used to call acting. And actors weren't even allowed to be buried in Christian cemeteries back in the day. And people still did it anyway. So...
Oh, I'll have to read that book. I never heard about that.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating history, but it also shows that like we love to judge these art forms that we also kind of obsess over, and it's so unfortunate that we can't just respect that all art is beautiful in its own way and not attach so much judgment to it.
And it's a gift. You know, it's not hurting anyone. I don't understand the problem. I really don't.
Which is, I think it would make the world a much better place if everybody could just say, if it's not hurting me, it doesn't have to be a problem for me.
Exactly. Either. It's not your problem.
Yes. I was also, you mentioned going to the clubs and doing the dancing for research and everything, not the professional kind, but the more learning kind. For the journalism part of it, do you have a journalism background, or is that something you also researched?
No, that was something that I also researched. I wanted to, at some point, write, you know, op-eds or, you know, just articles in general. I wanted to have a magazine. I wanted to do all these things. Fiction is my forte. So nonfiction is a completely different genre. And then when you get into the journalistic aspects of it, you know, you just have so many, you have more rules and more parameters, especially when working with a newspaper. And so I did, we have the Metro Journal out here. We have the LA Sentinel in Los Angeles, and there was another, I can't recall off the top of my head right now, but there's another newspaper, a local newspaper in Los Angeles that I also, And so I utilized those people, and I knew journalists. I mean, just being at UCLA, being an English major, you end up, or minor rather, but you end up, you know, knowing people who end up writing for these papers. And that's, my friends were, you know, all in some way, kind of interrelated into that world. And so I ended up doing a lot of that. But, you know, I also just love reading the paper. I was one of those people that had the New York Times delivered, you know, the Sunday Times delivered for a long time. And I still do. And that's where Keke gets it with her father, you know, reading the Sunday paper and getting the coupons. And my kids used to clip coupons. Always been into the written word, always been, you know, somebody likes ink on my fingers, so to speak. So for me, it was research on both sides of that. Right. But I wanted to just say I did start pole dancing, dancing because I was just a dancer. And it was the sensuality of it and the empowering aspect of it that really attracted me to it. And so that's why I started to research more about that. And then I would meet some of our instructors, and we talked about that too. And they actually worked at the clubs. And so that's how you get down there, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, I work at I'm just using an example, but not for real. But I work at the Kitty Cat, off Moreland or whatever, and they would come and they were like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be hosting amateur night or whatever. So if you guys want to come down, you can come down. That's how they actually get a lot of girls. That's how they get a lot of dancers too. You may never know what your next profession is going to be. Hey, I was open. If I have the confidence, I'll make $1,000 a week, no problem. Or a night if you want to take me to Miami, and then they take these road trips sometimes, and so they have times a year where they go to New Orleans, they go to Miami, they go to Alabama, they go all over the place, and they're just rolling and making money and having a good time. And so I'm like, if I were 22, I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
You might be interviewing me for a whole different profession.
Yeah. And that's something, I mean, the thing with stripping is that it really, all body types and all ages end up on stage and end up being celebrated. Like, women are so hard on themselves and their body and their age and don't realize that it's still like there's an audience for you, so to speak, who would love to see you. And maybe that's not the best way to frame your self-confidence, but it is true that whomever you are, however you look, there is an audience who would be in love with you.
Oh, absolutely. OnlyFans has proven that, honey.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Which is another judged thing that maybe, like you said, we could all just reserve our judgments, particularly if women can be very vicious towards other women, which you also show where even Keke's best friend is kind of a little judgmental towards her past and towards these women who are still stripping actively and acting like, they're a little beneath her because she's a wife and a mother and a PhD candidate, which is very impressive too.
No judgment, right?
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah. But even the people you love can sometimes have that very judgmental attitude. And I think a lot of women think it's fine to judge other women because you're like, well, I'm not a man, so it's okay. So I love that you also,
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yes, you're also tackling that the way, hey, even if you are another woman, you casting this judgment is still a problem. It's still part of the issue.
Oh, very much so. And the way that other women accept or reject you in society, if they're going to be helpful or not. Shelley comes up. Shelley is the best friend.
Yeah.
She comes up a lot more in this novel because, there's a way to say, okay, that's not for me. And then there's a way not to do it.
Yes.
And if you're saying that's not for me while pointing, and going ahead and saying, okay, it's okay to demonize them. It's okay because that's who they are. That's, they earn that. They deserve that. It's never okay. It's never okay. And Shelley is very much in that realm where she's like, oh, no, you want to be like me. You want to be better. Keke, you want this life over here. You left that behind for a reason. And Keke's like, wait a minute, hold up. That's not necessarily true. I'm not shading your life, but I don't want 4 kids running around. That's not me either.
Yeah.
So I think on either side, you have to be sure not to judge the other's decisions about how they choose to live their lives. Women, unfortunately, we have more choices to make than men do. I'm just going to say it. We do. Because we come out the womb with a period. We come out the womb with breast milk from our mother. We never, ever, ever get to decide what this body is going to behold, but we can decide how we utilize it. We can decide for ourselves and for other women how we're going to respect and treat each other. And it's a lesson that I'm learning as well. And so Shelley is a judgment of all. I think all of us have it in us when we walk down the street and we see somebody who's like, oh, she knew she shouldn't have come out the house like that. And you have to check yourself because it's like, am I really saying that, or am I mad because I didn't have the balls to come out the house like that? You know what I'm saying? I think, and even in the language we use, right? Balls, like, but I drop those balls. I give balls to men as a woman. I give the body to you. So that would be something Honey Mama would say, like, oh no, I gave you those, so I'm not afraid of those. That doesn't even have any sway over me anymore, So I think it's important for us as women to respect other women's choices and to make sure that we're not demonizing them while making choices for ourselves.
Yeah, and that is so important. It really is just a hard lesson to learn as a woman, because I've been there too, where I've thought something and then been like, why am I even thinking that? Why am I letting those thoughts influence me? Because it's really always just a mirror of yourself, whatever negative thing you're thinking of somebody else, which we should all try and remember.
Yeah, and the society at large in which you exist, right? So I think one important thing about settings in books is that you have to understand that you're in the catechism of that social, network. And so Indian Springs is not welcoming to being different. It just isn't. And then it speaks on the larger role, speaks on the larger role of being in the South and what that history has been like, for people who are different, especially people of color, and how when you're a woman of color, you're just kind of told what you're going to do or how you're going to be or how you should act or how you should speak. And the fact that Honey Mama full on rejected that. It's just something that I enjoy writing more about. I enjoy when that storyline starts to reveal a little bit more about herself, a little bit more about Sugar Daddy, her father, and how she inherited and what he did in the South, and how, he has all these kids everywhere, but each of his kids have homes. Each of his kids have property. Because as a Black man, even though he was passing, he knew that this was important in the South. So would that be as important in Hawaii? I don't know. But respecting where you are and the power of the place, the soil that you're standing on, and what you can do within your small little area, and how that impacts society at large. We were kind of talking about that earlier, just in the political climate, the climate of the country, the climate of the world right now. We need to be more respectful of ourselves and understand that we're all mirrors of each other. I think if we did more of that on a one-on-one, and then it spreads, we would have a much happier place, or at least even keeled place. Like right now, I feel like everything is kind of topsy-turvy. And, that's the pole is reminiscent of life. You're either up or you're down, or you're swinging in the middle. So you have to kind of decide. But you're going to be on all facets if you can get up to the top. Like you said earlier, you still got to work your way back down and then get back up there and clean it. So I think it's very important that we all realize we could be anywhere, on the pole, and to respect that. And I sometimes think Shelley forgets that.
Yes. And I think Shelley is also an important character for all of us who forget that, so we can see, what the consequences of those attitudes are, in the sense that they do hurt your friends and the people you love, which you probably don't mean to do, but we do it sometimes. And it's important to see that and think, maybe I should put a little less judgment in my tone if I'm going to speak.
Absolutely. And it's something that we practice until we're not here anymore. We're all working on ourselves.
Yes. And this is something I always like to ask debut authors, but I know you were published before this with Drama High, but was it a different publishing process for an Epitaph for Jezebel? Being an adult novel, did you go a different route with this, or was the publishing process about the same, you would say?
Okay, good question. You asked very thoughtful questions.
Thank you.
I would say, so here's the thing. It was different because as a young adult novelist, or just a novelist back in the day, I did not have a name. I didn't have anyone to pull for me. I didn't have, a publisher I can call up and be like, hey, I have this project, would you mind taking a look at it? I still had a relationship with Kensington. And although they weren't publishing Drama High anymore because Defina no longer does young adult, and I couldn't find another publisher to pick up Drama High, so I started publishing myself. And so the last 5 books of that series so far, I have another one, keeping fingers crossed, coming out at the end of this year. But it was very different in that, number one, the word count is much larger for adult books. So there's a lot less sleep because I have a day job as well, as a family. And I think number 2, the process with my publisher was different. I mean, with my editor was different, because there was a lot less, oh, you can't say this or you can't say that. It was more like, okay, give me more of this or give me more of that. So yes, it's very different. And writing the second one, which is what we're in the midst of now, has been more, it's been a very freeing experience. I'll put it like
Mm-hmm.
that. Drama High has a lot of parameters. You know, you keep it in 60,000 words, you keep it here, you keep it clean cut.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a full outline of the series. So I literally stop at a particular place if it's a seasonal event or a school event or something like that. With the adult novel series, you know, I can go through seasons if I want to in one
Mm-hmm.
book. I can carry on through and go backwards and forward. It's just a different process. And the publishing of it, um, like I said, I've never had an adult novel, so to actually have hardcover copy, it's my first. My
Yeah.
first, yeah, I'm so excited. It's my very first hardcover copy. So, and you know, I wanted to be. I still watch Murder She Wrote. So
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to be J.B. Fletcher
Yeah.
when I was younger, and so to actually have yes these hardcover books and
Mm-hmm.
to just have the experiences that I've already had with publishing an Epitaph for Jezebel, it's just been a whole different ball game.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And this is something, since we're winding down the interview because I've gone a little over, but it's fine. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have, or anything you didn't get a chance to talk about that you would like to talk about?
The only thing I would say would
Mm-hmm.
be the names.
Yeah.
So, an epitaph for Jezebel, obviously, Jezebel, queen in the Bible, who was fed to
Mm-hmm.
the dogs when, you know, her castle was taken over and everybody was killed, and it was a bad, bad situation.
Yes.
And she was, but the thing about her that I love is that she stood on the balcony in her robe and her regal clothing and was like, "You gonna kill me? You gonna kill me like a queen." The queen
Mm-hmm.
that I am. So all of my books in this series, and they can be standalone books as well for those who, you know, haven't read An Epitaph for Jezebel, you end up reading Lost in the Garden of Eve. We're all reclaiming the power of the quote unquote bad girls of the Bible.
No.
So there's Delilah, there's Eve,
Mm-hmm.
there's Jezebel, there's Lot's wife, there's Lilith, there's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I want to do because I grew up in a very religious household when I was younger. And if you did something wrong or if you were owning your sexuality, look cute, put on pink lipstick, you were a Jezebel,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or you were Lot's. You don't want to be like Lot's wife, do you? And I'm like, well, it depends. Was it sea salt? Was it kosher salt? Like, what kind of salt did she turn? See, that's the
Yeah.
problem with me. That's my
Mm-hmm.
mouth. But anyway, so you know, this pink sea salt is very delicious. If I turned
Yeah.
into a Lila, I might eat myself. But so you just that's all I would say is that the books are giving and reclaiming the
Mm-hmm.
power of that female embodiment, and even in religious history, how we've been demonized just by our
Mm-hmm.
names. And so the power to rename yourself, and that's why all the women are named after sweet, delicious things is to remind them that they are beautiful and that they are worthy. And just as you are, just as you've been created, you are perfect.
Yeah. And that is, the names are an aspect that I loved a bit because
Mm-hmm.
it's such a nice, it's another thing, not to get on too much of a tangent, but like people make jokes about stripper names all the time.
Yes, yes, diamond and cinnamon.
Yeah. So for it to be such an important part of reminding them of their value in your book, I thought was a really beautiful decision.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
And Honey Mama gives all her girls sweet names.
Yes. And for my final question, what are you doing next and where can people find and follow you?
Well, lisadivine.com is my website, Lysadivine. And you can find all my, you know, social. There it is
Mm-hmm.
right there. Thank you very much.
Yes.
All my socials are also on the website.
Mm-hmm.
I am, of course, here on Mighty Blaze. And then I
Yeah.
also have the NBCC, which is a National Book Club Conference coming up here
Mm-hmm.
in August. I think it's the
No.
first weekend in August here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I am also in the midst of writing, as I said, Lost in the Garden of Eve, which is the second book in the series, but it can also be, like I said, a standalone if you haven't started with this one. But please do start
Mm-hmm.
with this one. I hope you enjoy it. You
Yeah.
can find the books on audiobook. You can find them on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or just walk into the Barnes and Noble bookstore.
Yeah.
That would be great. We like brick
Mm-hmm.
and mortar bookstores. We like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, all the independent bookstores as well. But you can find all of my books, of course, on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Eldivine, and thank you for everybody watching for joining us on Debut Spotlight this week. And make sure you keep following and subscribing for more amazing authors like Eldivine. So,
thank you, Andy, so much for having me. I was so happy to be here, and you're an amazing interviewer. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Gave me a lot to think about, girl.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.